So everybody obviously talks about the immediate savings of a battery, but what we want to look at is the lifetime value. Hi everybody, Daniel and Matt here from GI Energy. Today we're talking about the lifetime value of a battery and whether it's really worthwhile buying one. Obviously there's a lot of hype around batteries at the moment for good reason. It's been more so since the rebate was announced on the 1st of July. Everybody's talking about it. Lots of good stuff has come from that subsidy. Also some bad things, lots of false promises. I guess a lot of people overselling the benefits of a battery. So what we wanted to do is go through and detail exactly what the real benefits are, give you an idea of what you can save. And then by the end of the video, you'll know exactly what that genuine lifetime value can be for you.
Yeah.
So why are people buying batteries, I guess, is probably a good place to start.
Yeah, I guess the initial one is obviously the saving off your power bill, obviously the power that you're using. VPPs are coming into it now. That's obviously becoming a really hot topic. I'd say 9 out of 10 clients that are inquiring with us are asking about it, maybe from something they've read or seen or anything else. Backup power, that's probably something that had sort of been quite popular maybe for the last year or two from weather events and storms and just other sort of network issues that have been causing a lot of power outages. Environmental, probably a little bit less so now that the subsidies are around, but we still get a lot of questions around sort of environmental aspects, particularly with sort of small commercial operations as well. And then I guess, yeah, some people just want the toys. They love the tech side or just having a battery as part of their home. Love looking at the app. Friend of mine from the gym just put in a big system. This morning at the gym, he was pulling up the VPP app and you know what I mean? He's just obsessed with it. He's like, I'm waking up in the night just looking at what the price is. And I was like, probably not going to happen at that time, but just quite cool that you know what I mean? It's nice to see that people are taking that interest in it. So I think, even just that toy side shouldn't even be underestimated. And when I say toy, it's not just something for no reason. Yeah. There's other benefits there, but they're obviously looking at that side of it as well.
Yeah, definitely. I think the overall energy independence, not just the backup power, but being able to just be looking at your app and knowing that over the last 24 hours, you've actually drawn nothing from the grid. It's quite a nice feeling.
Pretty cool, isn't it?
And then obviously that, as you said, all that stuff has to be backed up with genuine dollar savings for it to make sense to most people. So let's have a look at them. Before we look at the savings, probably worthwhile doing a little bit of information about what a battery is likely to cost now that we've got these subsidies.
Yeah.
So maybe a bit of a range there.
Yeah, I guess that'll come down to the product, the size, and a few other things. But to give a sort of rough idea, if you were doing a small, say, 8 kilowatt hour battery, you're probably looking closer to maybe $1,000 a kilowatt hour, maybe a little bit more, depending on if it's single or three phase, because you've got other equipment there, the inverter, gateway, or sort of backup. Obviously, the labour of the installation. When you're going up in terms of the actual size of the battery towards that upper end of the 50 kilowatt hour subsidy limit, you're then probably looking more around sort of half that, 500, potentially a little bit lower, maybe in the sort of 450 if you've already got a hybrid inverter and you're using the same branded battery.
Yeah.
And then flipping maybe the other side of that sort of 500 mark if you're then adding a new inverter and obviously maybe some changes to the existing system if it's in place. And I guess that's looking at real quality gear. So obviously the brands that ourselves and a lot of other really good installers want to use, there are stuff that could be way down that scale. And I've seen some of the ones on social media and people have sent them to us, and there's some real scary stuff there. And a bit of a chaotic industry at the moment with all that going on. So you can definitely see some cheaper dollar per kilowatt hour units, but I guess that's what we want to try and explain in this video, is what the lifetime saving is. And that probably isn't going to be achieved with something like that, because the lifetime or the life expectancy will be a lot lower.
Yeah, 100%. There's some crazy stuff happening, isn't there, with installs, products and pricing that we don't get involved with. Yeah. So that range there that you've given is obviously pretty broad, about $1,000 to sort of 450 per kilowatt hour. But just to elaborate a little bit on why it would be so much more with a smaller battery, you're already paying for the person to be there. You're already paying for a lot of the hardware that doesn't change.
Yes.
So inverter, gateway, as you said, there's some devices there that you're paying for, whether you've got 8 kilowatts or 50 kilowatt hours of storage.
Yes.
And then adding to it is a much more simple process than starting again in terms of just adding modules. So it's the economies of scale, I guess, of doing the bigger batteries that make it a lot more cheaper per kilowatt hour. So that's roughly how you can sort of start calculating your costs. Obviously, you'd need to speak to a consultant if you wanted to calculate the size of your battery and then get some costs for what you need. But in terms of the savings, we should just start with the basic savings of kilowatt hour.
Yeah, so obviously you'll be using a certain amount of power on your power bill, which would be issued either monthly or quarterly, depending on how you build. So I guess an easy example is I've got an 11 kilowatt hour battery at home. My usage rate is now 35 cents per kilowatt hour. So if I completely discharge the battery, that's a saving of $3.85 per day, which if you looked at that over the year, it's about $1,500. So obviously some days where I may not completely discharge it, other days where I may use more, but just a rough sort of figure, because there might be some installations that are still around that sort of 10, 11 kilowatt hours of storage, maybe with a lower requirement for what you need there.
Yeah.
I was working one out before where they were using around 56 kilowatt hours a day, quite a high energy household. And if we were looking at a 40 kilowatt hour battery at 35 cents a kilowatt hour, that was about $13.77 per day. About $5,000 a year. Yeah. And that's just from the usage savings portion, which if we're looking at a time-based retailer where I know we can charge the battery every single day of the year for completely free, which is available in virtually every area now with a couple of different retailers, and will continue to obviously expand, I would expect, moving forward.
Yes.
$5,000 a year on that system is incredible. That's a massive saving. And as you said, we're just talking about the usage figure.
Yeah, so that's just your kilowatt hour charges. So for those that are new to solar, battery or energy, you've got a power bill would have a kilowatt hour charge. That's your units of energy that you've bought from the grid.
Yeah.
A lot of bills now, well, all bills have a service cost, which we'll get into in a minute. And then a lot of bills now have a demand charge as well. So the demand charge is obviously for your peak demand.
Yeah.
So there's you'll measure your peak demand at any one time, and then there'll be a per kilowatt charge for that, duplicated over every day of the billing period.
Yeah.
That's a really difficult one to get rid of with just solar alone.
Yeah, it's almost impossible now, because that period for most homes will be between 4 p.m. and 9 p.m.
Yeah.
So your solar generation is obviously coming towards the end there.
Yeah.
And if you're at 6 p.m. or 7 p.m. turning on the aircon and the oven and something else all at once, that's a capacity charge, which is quite common for businesses, which may be familiar with it. But now for homeowners, the one on my bill is now 25 cents per kilowatt. So if my demand was 10 kilowatts, that would be $2.50 per day per month. That's obviously charged per day. So another 30 days at $2.50, 60, 70 bucks a month. Over the year, $600, $700. And that's not a huge demand. We've seen some on a 3-phase home that could be double that.
Yeah.
So heating and cooling, obviously, that's only if things are timed incorrectly. So if you've got a battery there with the right capacity and the right sized inverter, so the inverter is really key, because that's obviously the amount the battery can discharge at that time. So if you had the need for 10, we can then offset that peak demand charge separate to your usage charge, which obviously is outlined before. When we know that we can charge the battery each and every day, regardless of weather, we know we can offset that peak demand charge as well.
Yeah. So that's you've got your kilowatt hour charges, your peak demand charge, and then the last thing on a traditional non-VPP power bill is your service cost or network fees.
Yeah.
That's the fee that you pay to maintain the lines and the infrastructure that sends electricity to your home. When the feed-in tariff was 60 cents in some areas and 44 in others, and it's obviously dwindled down over the years to almost nothing, you could sell back and offset those fixed costs. That's almost impossible to do now because the feed-in's so low. So then you've got your fixed cost on your bill that's been pretty hard to get rid of. But now with a battery and a VPP, you can export enough to potentially offset those as well. So do you want to explain how you would go about doing that?
Yeah, so that'd be separate to obviously what we've just discussed before of what it's saving of your usage. So obviously the way a VPP would work is that you trade some energy to the grid. So then we just need to make sure we've got the right amount of storage to cover needs, plus trade some power. And again, the right sized inverter to dispatch that power really quickly, because quite often those time windows are really short, maybe 5, 6 p.m, could be even 5 or 10 minutes now that you get that real good peak.
Yeah.
So if you can dispatch even just that little bit of energy, if that price spiked to $1 a kilowatt hour, which can be reasonably common, and obviously it can be a lot higher, but I'd rather talk about what happens more frequently.
Yeah.
If you can do 2 kilowatt hours, obviously at $1 each, that's two $2 per day.
Just like that.
Just like that. So that's more than enough to obviously cover those service charges. So you can obviously then eradicate that part. If you're obviously able to dispatch a lot more power at a higher rate, even better. You can obviously improve that. And in some instances, we've seen some savings where there can be another $1,000 or $2,000 per year on top of that usage saving we mentioned before. And if we look at an average bill, even with a smaller battery at sort of 30 cents, 40 cents a kilowatt hour, we still can be talking about easily into, $1,000 per year in terms of that saving.
Yeah. I think there was one guy made $900 in a night, wasn't there? On one of the VPPs.
Yeah.
That's obviously an extreme. I think that's where they've a lot of people have been pitching it that way.
Yes. Yeah.
We've always tried to be a little bit more conservative there. You don't get that often, but it can be like $21 a kilowatt hour. I think even on mine was the highest I've seen it on my Amber, and I've been on there for about 40 days now. Was $12 for a feed-in. So as you said, if you can feed back a significant amount there, that even in a day you could potentially cover your whole network fees for the quarter.
Yeah.
But that is an extreme case. Just want to double down on that because I don't want to be, people expecting to see that frequently. It's not often.
No.
But
it's seasonal as well, I think.
Yeah.
And obviously a lot of the batteries we're installing at the time of recording this will be in that shoulder period. If you're doing it in the spring, sort of autumn time, normally there's less volatility on the grid because there's less heating and less cooling.
Yeah.
But even, on a rainy day, you could still easily see 40 or 50 cents a kilowatt hour.
Oh, easy. Yeah.
So it's still very, very beneficial.
The $12 one was recently.
Yeah.
So right now, at the time of filming this, I guess we are in that shoulder season. Yeah. We're obviously sort of coming out of the colder days, so the heating's a bit less. But anyway, yeah, they do happen, and that's another saving, isn't it? So you've got your kilowatt hour charges, you've got your demand charges, you've got your network fees, and then the other thing that I think people don't factor in, or the other thing actually before I go into that, is the electric vehicle. So if you've got an EV or you're planning an EV, you can obviously then stop buying petrol or diesel, and your battery can be utilized in a VPP and a tariff that can be utilized in terms of getting free energy. You can save that cost too.
Easily. That's what I do with my EV. I've been charging it from the grid for free or at a really low rate, even after my battery's been emptied potentially when it's those hotter or cooler nights. And it actually calculates it in my app. So in the time of having it, which is about 2.5 years, it suggests that's about 13 grand's worth of fuel.
Wow, really?
Yeah.
In how long?
About 30 months, 2.5 years.
Wow.
So if you average that out at that's about 25,000 Ks a year.
Okay.
I don't get the range in my car that they promised, but that's a different story. But yeah, if you averaged out that you're using about $5,000 a year in fuel, $100 a week, which a lot of people probably are.
Yeah.
Quite easily. And again, many variables there.
Of course, yeah.
But even if you halve that and you've saved $5,000 or $6,000,
yeah,
that's a huge saving as well.
Yeah, of course.
So it's definitely something that I don't even factor that in when I'm talking to people, because you just sort of, I don't know.
There's a lot going on, isn't there? It's a complicated thing to.
Yeah, and it's just something I'm familiar with. But obviously that when you're increasing the load in the home, and an EV is a massive one, that's a huge thing that could be factored in there. Yeah,
definitely. And if you're talking about lifetime cost versus, lifetime value, the other thing that probably most people don't do is think about the increased costs. Mm-hmm. So if we go back over the last 20 years, the cost of energy has gone up between sort of 5 and up to about 20% on some years. There have been a few times there where it's gone backwards, but that's usually followed either by a sharp increase or preceding a sharp increase. So I think for me personally, I just tell people if they want to do that, add 5% a year.
Yeah.
You do that over 10 years, 5%, 5%, 5%, that adds up to a pretty significant additional cost of power. So obviously that then equals an additional saving.
Yeah.
So if you really want to do the lifetime value, you need to compound that over a period of time. And the battery warranty is typically 10 years. So that might be a good time to compound it over.
That's an easy one, isn't it? And I guess, following on from that, if we're suggesting, a lot of bills we see, 35 cents a kilowatt hour is very common now.
Yeah.
If you've got a battery there, the right capacity built over time, it could be $1 a kilowatt hour.
Yeah.
It's completely irrelevant what that cost becomes, because the battery is obviously going to offset that.
Yeah.
And that's how you protect yourself with the system in place there. And yeah, that can increase year on year on year as long as you've got a great system installed there and someone there to back you up and look after you. It's amazing.
Yeah, it really is, and it's as I say, the proof's in the pudding in terms of the history of costs going up, and another great benefit if you do want to calculate that lifetime value. There's some things there also that are not purely financial, so a little bit more difficult to quantify in terms of the value of the product, but backup power is the most obvious one.
Yeah.
If you're a commercial premises, you might be able to look at loss of earnings through backup power, so then you can quantify it in a really pragmatic way doing that calculation. But for a homeowner, you're not losing anything in terms of a monetary value. But I know for me, in our metro area, not far from the city, we still lose power on really hot days sometimes because the grid's just overloaded with air cons and presumably electric vehicles. When the power cuts and we've still got lights, ceiling fans, fridge, TVs, power points, and those basic things that you need, with 2 kids in the house, it's a godsend. Keeping them a little bit cooler, keeping them entertained, knowing your fridge is still working, it's brilliant.
Yeah, I think there was a big trend towards, I think I noted earlier, towards looking at backup. Obviously, that was sort of, I guess, starting the increased installation of batteries anyway.
Yeah.
Our attachment rate's always been reasonably high, and obviously now the subsidies swayed it the other way. But yeah, backup's a huge part of this.
Yeah.
If it's done right, and that's why we always ask what the requirements are there for backup, because no 2 batteries are equal.
Yeah.
And what you need there, and understanding how it will work for you. As you said, you potentially can't put a value on what that is. And yeah, when you hear people that when there have been an outage, and we've had clients over the years where over, summer breaks and stuff like that, where they've got a continued outage there, but they've got the aircon on and everything going.
Yeah, it's great.
It's amazing, and that's obviously why people do this a lot of the time, and the subsidies now helping that obviously be achieved. The backup is massive.
Yeah, it's a huge value add. The other thing that we did speak about was EVs and saving fuel. There's another sort of more complex one to quantify. And then the environmental benefit that we also spoke about very briefly before. Difficult to quantify, has to be thrown in the mix though for the overall lifetime value.
Yeah.
When you've installed your solar and battery, your app would usually let you know what your carbon emission reduction has been.
Yeah.
And it would often liken that to either taking cars off the road in terms of how many kilometers you've saved from a combustion engine vehicle, or potentially trees planted, stuff like that. So not for everybody. It's not every customer, obviously, that's environmentally focused, and even the ones that are usually want to see the hard financial savings as well. But if you're talking about value, I think that's a benefit.
Yeah, absolutely, for sure.
And then the last one that I wanted to talk about was the home automation, home or business automation, but strictly around energy, I guess. So the way that you can distribute power in the premises in an intelligent way using software to charge things at the right time, turn on and off appliances at the right time for cost savings. So that whole home automation, the battery is central to that.
Yeah. Because
you've got your own mini power station.
Yeah, absolutely. It becomes the brain of the operation as well a lot of the time. And we get a lot of inquiries about home automation with, turning on hot water, aircon, pool heater, whatever that might be. And I'm not an expert in home automation on how to enable the Modbus function so that someone else can do it.
That's good enough.
But other than that, we obviously speak to a lot of people that are far more clued up on that than I am, which is great. And we provide a product that can do those things. That's the key. And our appliances and our needs are only going to get more, more specialized and more streamlined in that way, where we need to potentially automate things. So having the firmware updates of these great products that do that, that's the key, because as you said, we want to build a system for what the requirements are right now, but also into the future.
Yeah, definitely.
And knowing we can do that, and we're not going to come back and have to start changing things, that's a great feeling as well.
Yeah, from simple to complex. For me, it's the first thing for me is just automating the aircon.
Yeah.
So every day that it's hot, I'm going to come home to a cool house, and it's not going to have cost me anything to do it.
That's awesome.
Not just because it's drawing battery power necessarily, but because it's potentially drawing free grid power.
Yeah.
So you can set up that automation, obviously, to just cool your house for free, regardless of how it does it. It will find a way to do it almost every day for no money. And as soon as you walk through the door, your house is cool. That's a big difference to getting home, cranking the aircon during peak times, having it to cool down your house in that time where it's cost the most.
Yes.
You're still hot waiting for it to cool down. It's very much a first world problem, I know, but these are the things you can do, and you can't do them without a battery. And then from another side of the coin, the capacity issue as well. So this is probably more for businesses, but a lot of the time you'll have a set amount that you can take from the grid, and upgrading that is really costly. And that is going to become an issue for homes, especially with people that potentially want 1 or 2 electric vehicles or plug-in hybrid vehicles into the future. Maybe it might be 5-10 years time, but it's happening. So rather than trying to upgrade grid infrastructure, which can be either very costly or impossible, you can have that power management built in, so it will prioritize different loads. You don't have to think about it. You can come home, plug your EV in, and it just will not charge it until it's free or until it's acceptable from a capacity perspective. So things aren't then going to trip out in your home. And in a business, obviously, it becomes a little bit more complex, but you can prioritize different loads, so they will then step down in a percentage. And if there's one that needs to run continually, like a server room or whatever it is, it will never shut down. And again, a battery is pretty central to a lot of this stuff. Without it, it makes it a lot more difficult. So there's a lot there.
For sure.
That probably people don't think about all of these things. But I guess the verdict is, if you're asking us, is a battery worth it? We're obviously biased. We're solar installers. We love batteries. We've both been doing this for a long time, and we can now see, even when I'm quoting batteries, I'm looking at the price just going, wow, that's so cheap. It's still a lot of money, but we're not used to quoting them with this big subsidy yet. So they just appear to be such good value, and they are. So I think that covers everything.
I agree. That's great.
We have a battery guide as well. So if there's stuff in here that you want more information on, or you're thinking about a battery for your home or your business, we'll put a link in there. It's totally free. You just download the guide, and it will potentially answer a few more questions that we haven't covered here. Thank you.
Thanks.